Let's talk about it now with immigration attorney, friend of the show, Darren Smallcomb. Great to see you, my friend.
Chris, how you doing?
You got it. So we know that local jurisdictions all the time, they set their own rules, right? They come up and they say, hey, you know what? We want a new ordinance for this and for that. But there are federal laws when it comes to immigration. So the question becomes, does one supersede the other?
It sure does. Federal law supersedes by the thing called the supremacy clause. So if there's a federal law on point that's enumerated to the federal government, it will always go over state law. So they cannot be in conflict when it comes to that. The issue we have here, though, is the feds control immigration law, which is federal, but the states control police power. That's delegated to the states. So there might be a conflict that we're heading towards for those.
Right, because essentially, you need the local law enforcement officers working with their counterparts at the federal level to make this whole thing work.
Absolutely.
And when you talk to law enforcement, to be honest with you, they're kind of upset and mad that they're not working together because they take an oath, do they not?
Right, they do. And I think it's kind of an 80-20 issue anyway in the United States. I mean, you have people like me that are very pro-immigration in many ways. However, I don't want criminals out there, right? I want people that are pursuing a legal pathway out there. So when you are releasing people that have been arrested for a crime from jail without turning them over to the federal government for processing, then you really do create problems for everybody involved.
$1 million question. Can Donald Trump really get rid of sanctuary cities?
Well, I don't put anything past him, I'll tell you that. But it's going to be tough. He tried in his first term, and he ran into some resistance in the Ninth Circuit, which is on the West Coast, and with the Supreme Court. So you can't really withhold money. You can't coerce local governments to do certain things. That's been some of the rulings that have come down so far, but that doesn't mean that they can't craft it in a way. And listening to the way he was speaking there earlier, there's always a couple of words in there that are really important, and he chose words how it's affecting U.S. citizens in those jurisdictions, right? And I think that there's something there.
Interesting. Let's talk about Boston for a second, where Border Czar Tom Homan warned that ICE agents would be going after criminals who are in that city illegally. But the mayor of Boston, well, she's fighting back. Here's what she said. Listen to this real quick.
No one tells Boston how to take care of our own. Not kings, and not presidents who think they are kings. We stand with immigrants. You belong here. Somos una ciudad de inmigrantes. Boston doesn't back down.
So as promised, Tom Homan carried out those raids and admitted, you've heard this, that migrants who may not be criminals are going to be swept up in those raids as well, because sanctuary cities, they're not cooperating. Listen to this.
We did an operation in Boston, 370 apprehensions. Most of them were criminals, but many were collaterals. Majority of criminals. How come the collaterals? I've said this 1,000 times. Sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the community and more collateral arrests. Why? If we can't get access to the bad guy in the county jail, if they're going to choose to release him in the public, which is just, releasing a public safety threat in the public, it's just dumb to begin with. Because it puts the public safety at risk, right? But when you release that public safety threat back in the public, that means we got to go find him. When we find him, most likely he's with others. And if they're in the country illegally, they're coming too.
Collateral arrests, right?
Yeah.
Could sanctuary cities be making it worse for other undocumented immigrants?
Oh, it's not just it could, it absolutely is. I mean, I don't think anybody really has an interest in picking up a abuela that's been here since the 70s, you know, and that's what's going to happen. So these generally committing crimes, right? You're probably going to have a profile of a younger man that doesn't have a lot of income, okay? So they're probably not living alone, right? Maybe they're living with family. So when they go to apprehend him at the home, not at the jail, they're going to pick up other family members that aren't a priority for enforcement. And that's a real problem for those people. And I don't think it serves our interests as Americans either. We only have so many people that are out there enforcing the laws. We want the criminals out, right? I'm not caring so much about the little girls and boys that are there that got brought by their parents, but they're going to be put in removal proceedings too if they're there.
Yeah, and another thing that Tom Homan points out is the danger that it puts agents in. Right? You're going into neighborhoods instead of jails, which is another thing that we've heard Tom Homan specifically tell our Dr. Phil, who, man, he's been on the front line of this thing for sure. I want to talk about one more thing, because the president could also take away funding until these cities comply, right? He used that tactic, for example, at Columbia University. He pulled back $400 million when it came to Columbia University and the anti-Semitism and everything was going on that campus. Is that a potential play here?
Absolutely. And look, whether it works in the end or not, right? Congress has control of funding. They allocate funds. Not the president, but he is given some discretionary funds to work with, and he has some limited ability to withhold funds. Certainly he should try to do that because that's going to serve his interests at the end of the day, or serve our country's interests at the end of the day. May not be held up in court at the end. That's a process that they're going to have to go through.
That means we'll have to have you back.
Be happy to be here.
Darren Smallcomb, thank you so much, sir, for being with us tonight.
Always.
You got it.
Yeah.
We'll be back with more news right after this.